Welcome back, guys. And this one is another SMAT quickie. Guys, if you're dealing with GST and if you're wondering why are so many exemptions given in GST, because although exemptions are great, they reduce the price of a service or a product. Example, today there's a lot of hue and cry about how oxygen cylinders, how vaccines, etc., should be exempt from GST. I completely agree. Exemption is great and it reduces the tax burden on the ultimate consumer. But for a CA student, exemptions are an important part of their exams. If you're at CA Inter or at CA Final, exemptions will form a part of your exam. And today we're tackling one such exemption with a great shortcut. This is called goods transport services. So when you're transporting goods from one place to the other, or a company is transporting goods, how does that dealt with? Is there an exemption to that? We'll deal with all that in the next few minutes, guys. SMAT quickies are really short videos that help you understand complex tax topics. And SMAT, of course, is a tax academy where we teach both online and offline classes, and we deal with direct tax, indirect tax, and also international tax, all housed in one very beautifully. My aim always when I teach is to make you understand it, by heart it, revise it, and re-revise it so that you're super ready, all sleeves folded for your exams. All the best. Let's check this out. Talk about goods transport agency or goods transportation. So guys, here is goods transport. And we'll take some examples. And in the next few minutes, you'll be very well versed with this exemption on goods transport. Now, guys, goods transport basically means you want to send something from one place to the other. So let's say I have a letter or a document which I want to send from one place to the other. So I use inland waterways. Inland waterways. That's the first thing. And I'm talking about this because, guys, in your mind, inland waterways in India, we don't use much. So the government wants to encourage this. So whenever you see inland waterways, whether in passenger transport or here in goods transport, both are exempt. Why? Because the government wants to encourage people to use inland waterways. So the moment you see inland waterways, you have to exempt it. So you're transporting goods by waterways. Congratulations. There will be no GST chargeable on that. Next, guys, if you're transporting goods by railways, another really good thing, guys, railways basically means you're not spoiling the environment, you're not using a lot of petrol, diesel, etc., and you're using public transport. So railways will be exempt only if it is doctor, doctor, one second, it is rail doctor NAM. This is a shortcut to remember, guys. Only if it is rail, Dr. Nam, only if it is these products will it be exempt for railways. So is railways exempt? Yes, railways is exempt only and only for these products. Let's see the first product, guys, here. It is railway equipment. Any railway equipment which you're transporting through railways, that is exempt. That is R. Next, D is defense. Is any defense or military material, how can you make that expensive? So that is exempt. Next, any relief material, guys. Lots of time there are floods in different parts of India. Last year there were Kerala floods, and when you want to send relief materials to those devastated places through a natural calamity, etc., has happened, and you want to sell relief materials, that transportation will be exempt. Next, guys, is fourth one, newspapers and magazines. So if you're sending newspapers and magazines, because, guys, newspapers and magazines need to be transported across India. So if you're transporting them, then there is no tax, but provided they are registered newspapers and magazines. Next, guys, here is agriculture produce. Anything which is agriculture produce, why should that become expensive? And hence transportation of that through rail is exempt, agricultural produce. Next, guys, the next one is milk and food grains. And food grains here includes any flour, any pulses, and any rice. Why are we writing this separately? Because as you know, guys, sometimes they're not considered into agricultural produce, but because they're secondary products, flour, rice, pulses, etc., secondary products, but they're included here. So any milk, food grains, etc., flour, pulses, and rice included. If you're transporting them by railways, there is no GST on that. And last, guys, is organic manure. It is manure, but not the chemical one, the organic one. If you're transporting that, then it is exempt. So you can transport it without paying any GST. So inland waterways was exempt because the government wants to encourage that. Railways is exempt if it's rail doctor NAM. Railways is exempt if it's rail doctor NAM. Keep that in mind, guys. This shortcut is going to be repeated again. Next, guys, if you can afford using courier services, and all of us know what is courier services. Courier services are fast services where you send documents and small products, etc. All these courier services, your Amazon and Flipkart parcels are coming through courier. On that, there is GST. On that service, courier service, there is GST. So this one is not exempt. This one will be subject to GST. Again, guys, if you use something called express cargo, Express cargo is when you want to send time bound shipments, like you're sending it today from Bangalore and should reach Mumbai tomorrow. So then it's express cargo. Again, that will be subject to GST because these are expensive things, guys. Courier, express cargo, expensive. So if you can afford that, you can also afford to pay GST. Also, there's a system called Angadiya. If you're not familiar with that, let me explain what this is. Angadiya is basically an informal network of courier agents. So Angadiyas will be there in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Calcutta, etc. And sending goods from one place to the other becomes easier and cheaper if you're using Angadiya services. But again, guys, these services are also subject to GST. So if you can afford courier, express cargo, and Angadiya, you clearly can afford to pay GST. Railways, they want to encourage, so there's an exemption there. But railway, Dr. Nam, keep that in mind. And of course, inland waterways, again, there is an exemption. But guys, let's say I'm transporting some chairs from my office to home. Let's say there's some extra chairs in my office. I want to transport them to home. And I use a small tempo guy. A small tempo I use. So that will again be exempt because he does not fall under the category of GTA services, that is goods transport agency. So then ultimately, who is goods transport agency? We will come to that. But just telling you guys, if it's a tempo, small truck, whereby I'm sending goods from one place to the other, and that's not a GTA. Why is it not a GTA? Because guys, this guy is not issuing me a consignment note. He's not issuing me a consignment note, then in that case, this will also come under an exemption. So repeating, Indian waterways exempt, railways exempt only for rail, Dr. Nam, courier, express cargo, Angadiya, always chargeable to GST because if you can afford these, you can also afford to pay GST. Small tempo service, etc. What do I mean by small? That they don't provide you consignment notes. They're transporting your goods by road, but they're not giving you a consignment note. In that case, it is an exemption. And last, we come to GTA. Now guys, GTA has to be dealt with separately. So I'm going to put a star mark and I'm going to deal with GTA here. Now, what is the difference between a GTA and a small tempo guy? Two things. One is GTA is always transporting goods by road, which the tempo guy was also doing. But GTA is also giving you a consignment note. A consignment note is basically like a proof of whatever you're transporting. So it will have your details, the consignee's details, or what are the description of goods, etc. And this consignment note, along with transportation of road, if both these things are happening, then you come under the category of GTA. So if you're GTA, example, Agarwal Packers and Movers, they're probably GTA. So GTAs are basically big guys who also transport you by goods by road and also give you a consignment note. Now let's tackle GTA separately because they are essential and the biggest part of goods transportation. When they're providing services to the government, guys, when they're providing services to the government or to the municipal bodies or the central government, state governments, how can you charge GST to the government? So hence they said that if you're providing services to the government, then in that case, there will be no GST. So this one is exempt. Next, whenever guys I have moved towns, let's say I have moved for work for a couple of years, I was in Delhi. So from Mumbai, I moved to Delhi. And when I moved, I transported all my goods, including my bike, etc., through a goods transport agency. So guys, anything for personal purposes, that is also exempt. Next, LL Dr. Nam. What is that? Guys, Dr. Nam, you already know. D is defense material, R is relief material, N is newspapers and magazines, agricultural produce, milk, food grains, including pulses, flour and rice, and organic manure. This you already know. LL is low value. Guys, if in one truck or if in one vehicle, the consignment, the charge that you make for transportation is less than 1500. If the transportation charge is, if the single consignment, if let's say you have a single goods carriages and the total value, not the value of the goods, but the total value of service, let's say there's some consignment which has to be transported from one place in Mumbai to another place in Mumbai, and the value that you're transporting, the transportation charges are less than or equal to 1500, then there is a low value and hence there's no GST. Also, secondly, guys, if for one person you're transporting goods, and for that person, let's say in my truck there are 15 people who are transporting their goods, and every person is transporting goods less than 750, less than or equal to 750 value, then that again is low. Guys, here low does not mean value of the goods, it means value of the service. So let's say 15 people are transporting goods in my goods carriages, and to each of them I'm charging them 600 rupees, then there will be no GST because that is exempt. So again I repeat, if goods transport agency, what's a goods transport agency? One who transporting by road and one who's issuing a consignment note. That both should happen to make it a goods transport agency. If they're providing services to the government, no problem. If they're providing to personal purposes, example, transportation of goods, when you're moving from one city to another, no problem. And if it's LL Dr. Nam, LL is low value again, and Dr. Nam, you know the full form. If that is the case, then again there is no GST. But other than that, guys, if they transport goods of any other entity, any other registered entity, any factory, any cooperative society, or any partnership firm LLP, even if not registered as well as unregistered, both these guys, then in that case, there will be GST. So only on this last case, there will be GST. So that's what goods transport is, guys. When you transport goods, what are the possible mechanisms of transporting goods? Let's recap this entire thing once before. First, GTA. Guys, goods transport agency, what it is, you already know. If they're supplying to the government, exempt. If they're supplying it for personal purposes, exempt. If they're LL Dr. Nam, exempt. But if they're supplying it to registered entities, like they're supplying it to electric bike company. If you've been my student, you know what is electric bike company is. If they're supplying services, let's say electric bikes, or Hero Honda for that example, is using a goods transport agency to transport their bikes from one place to the other, then in that case, there will be GST. Just recapping the entire thing in the last 2 minutes, so that goods transport is something that you already know and you know really well. Guys, goods transportation is when you want to transport goods, including documents, papers, etc., from one place to the other, let's say from Bombay to Bangalore. If I use inland waterways, then the government wants to encourage it, and hence no GST. If I use railways, then if it's Rail Dr. Nam, railway material, defense material, relief material, newspapers and magazines, agricultural produce, milk, food grains, and manure, organic manure, then there is no GST. If I'm using courier service or express cargo or Angadiya services, then I'm paying a lot of money for that. So hence I can also afford to pay GST. So that is subject to GST. I've not spoken about air cargo, but air cargo, guys, is covered in express cargo, etc. So that is obviously supposed to be GST. But if I'm transporting it through a local tempo guy who's transporting it by road but doesn't give me a consignment note, then in that case there is no GST. But let's talk about GTA, which is the major part of goods transportation. Goods transport agency. Who is this goods transport agency? Someone who transports the goods by road, and someone who issues a consignment note, which has details of everything, including consigner, consignee, description of goods, etc. In that case, if he's providing services to the government, then he will charge the government, but he will not charge GST. If he's providing it to personal purposes, again, he will charge you, but no GST. If he's providing LL Dr. Nam, guys, LL is the value of services. If it's for the entire goods carriage and one single good carriage, the value of service is less than or equal to 1500, or per person, if it's less than or equal to 750, then in that case, there will be no GST. Dr. Nam, you already know. But if they're providing services to big people, like registered entities, like companies, like factories, like cooperative societies, like partnership firms, LLPs, whether registered or not registered, basically means to business people, then that will be subject to GST. Guys, between passenger transport, which you already have seen a video on SMAT QUIKies, and between goods transportation, one of them, there's a very high chance of that appearing in your exams. I hope you understood this really well. Guys, I go really fast because these are supposed to be revisionary lectures and quickies, and hence the pace is kept to be really, really fast. I also know a lot of people do 2x speed to watch videos, especially lectures. So I anyways increase my speed to 2x. I hope you enjoyed this. See you really soon. Thank you.